All right, guys, welcome to our off season. All right, so we're gonna go over today our postseason phase one long duration ISOs. It's going to last for 3 weeks. This is where we set the foundation. This is the work that's kind of boring. It's not sexy, but you absolutely need this 3 weeks. It is non-negotiable if we're going to set ourselves up for when we get to July, August, and we can get into the quote unquote sexy stuff, the fast lifts, the power, the speed. Okay, so if we don't take care of the foundation, the base, we simply not add to our ceiling potential as we go through the summer. So at the end of the day, our goal is simple. It's to improve our athletes' horsepower and durability, right? So durability basically means that you're as healthy as you can be, your tissues are healthy, you're feeling great, you have a lot of energy, and you're ready to go whenever camp starts in September or late August. The other one is our athletes' horsepower, right? So whoever can produce the most force in the least amount of time out of the right angle, all right, wins. And even more important, whoever has the biggest eccentric force wins, right? So it's not necessarily about only producing that force, but it's also about being able to hold that force, absorb it, right? You can't absorb force, you can only produce it, but it's also about being able to load that tissue, hold it, and then redirect that energy the other way. So what's the goal of the phase one of the long duration ISOs? Well, you know, this year we have players coming in, broken femur, PCL and knee ligament, shoulder has been operated on, torn labrum, right? Some guys have been in a long playoff run, so they're banged up, they're bruised. It's long and grueling. It's 8 months of heavy hitting, skating sport that hockey is. So we want to unwind from the grind. We want to try and activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which means relax and digest, opposed to what it's on right now, which is sympathetic nervous system, which means fight or flight. All right, so we want to try and keep the body relaxed, allow it to recover. We also recommend that once the season is done, take 2 weeks off to just be kids. Don't do anything else. Go for nice walks. And very important, which I'll mention again at the end of the video, but this is a time for you to put your hockey bag away. All right, just put your gear away, leave it out until at least I'd say late June, early July. Then you can start reintroducing it slowly. Again, if you can skate, you can stick handle, you can shoot a puck, you can read plays, you can be off the ice for 2 to 3 months in the summer. Once you get back, it's going to take about a half second. You'll be rusty, and then you're going to get right back into it. All right. Now, there are exceptions. If your skating is awful, if you can't stick handle, if you can't shoot, if you lack the hockey skills, if you want, then absolutely try and find some ice, because at the end of the day, that is probably more important for you than being in the gym, while the gym is going to give you the qualities to become a better hockey player in terms of strength, power, speed, and durability. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at what is long and what is short, right? So short, we want to lengthen what is short. So think of the anterior shoulder, think of the hip flexors, think of the ankle being in dorsiflex, being in a boot, being rigid, being tight, all right? And then on the other hand, we want to think of what is long. Well, what is long, we want to shorten it, right? So think about our upper back and then the hamstring. So those are our two main focus, and we lengthen what is short, we shorten what is length, so we can reestablish fascial line as best as we can. So we want to help improve our tissue's capacity. We want to prepare it for weight bearing load that is about to come again down the road. But if we don't take care of this right now, then we're leaving a lot of gains on the table. So after that, so long duration ISOs, right? So we're going to increase the time under tension. We're going to do some stress shielding. Stress shielding, think of it as holding a position between 2 and 5 minutes. And what happens when you do that is the healthy fiber is going to shield the injured area, all right, the damaged, the scarred tissue. But if you stay in that position for long enough, that healthy fiber is going to start letting, some of that blood, the nutrients, go towards that damaged area, which will help repair, regenerate, and restructure the fascia. At the end of the day, the more we can do that, the better it will be, because the communication will be much more quicker and efficient between the brain and the tissue. All right. Next up, right, we want to target weak area, right? So on Tuesday, for example, we're doing 3-second pauses. We're going to have a disadvantage where we are the most strong at 90 degrees, and then advantage, right? So we want to make sure that we're programming our workouts in terms that we identify what those weak areas were in our assessment, and then we make sure that we attack it individually and specifically with each athlete. This will also help us increase mobility, so very important, right? Like I was saying, just take the ankle, for example. You're in a boot all year, all winter long, you're in shoes, you lack ankle mobility. 90% of the athletes that come in don't have adequate range of motion in the ankles. So that's one place that we're going to spend some time. Some people can't go overhead, so if they can't go overhead, they shouldn't be doing a chin-up. They shouldn't be pressing anything overhead. So that's one thing to take care of. Again, the hips, often more than not, they're not where we'd like them to be. At the end of the day, you can't move where you can't move. And if you can't move where you can't move, then you can't produce force from that specific joint angle. And that's the whole goal, is to get you in those positions that you would do on the ice and then produce power out of it. All right. Again, pronation angles are very important. And this goes along with the creep method, if you want, right? So if I'm holding a push-up, right? So there's a difference between being down here and being at 90 degrees with my elbows at 45 degrees. This is where I produce the most force. This is where I can allow my body to be in a as relaxed as possible state as the tissues are spreading out, right, being lengthened. And once you start to feel the burn, all right, that is when the real work, the real benefits are starting to happen. So just think, the longer you can hold that position, the stronger, the bigger, and the faster you are becoming. So it's important to fight through that burn, but also not lose technique, not lose form. And that's the coach's job, to ensure that the exact posture that we want is being maintained. All right. As soon as the technique goes out, you stop the clock, you look at the clock, and you have a 1-to-1 work-rest ratio. All right. So that was just the creep that I talked about allowing the tissue to lengthen and relax and feel that burn, if you want, come in. Henneman's principle. Now you're thinking, how am I going to get bigger, stronger, faster from just holding positions or the 3-second pause? Well, it's called the Henneman's principle, right? So let's say I'm in a split lunge. Right now it's easy, right? I'm just activating low threshold motor units. Okay, but the longer I go, the more the burn starts to go. Those low threshold motor units no longer do its job. They need to recruit bigger and faster, higher motor units. And so that's where this comes in. And so again, that's why I say the longer you hold it, the higher, the bigger motor units you are recruiting. And so the bigger, the stronger, the faster you are getting. And there was a cool research study done, and people with excess weight who did long duration iso actually lost weight, and people who needed to add muscle on that did long duration iso actually gained muscle mass, right? So it doesn't matter if you have to lose some weight or if you have to gain some muscle. Long duration iso can benefit both of you, all right? And then during this phase, we also focus on the lowest hanging fruit. Again, I just talked about ankle range of motion. It all starts from the feet. It all starts from the ground up. If your feet is weak, if your big toe is weak, right? The big toe is connected to the glute, which is the most powerful muscle in your body. If that connection, if there's a lot of scar tissue in that connection, then the message cannot properly be transmitted up the chain, which means that the energy that is put into the ground will not make all its way back through the lower leg, the knee, and then the hip joint, right? The hip joint is the most powerful producer of force. But again, if you lack stability in the foot, in the ankle, in the lower leg, in the knee, in the quad hamstring, then you're only going to get about 60 or even 40% of that energy going back up the chain. So lowest hanging fruit, we have the big toe. All right, again, you've been in a boot, you're in a shoe all winter long. Your big toe extension is absolutely horrible. So we want to get that. We also want it to get stronger. And then we have bringing our foot back into mobility and adding some strength to it. Every time we run, every time we do a sprint, all right, we have about 5 times our body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, every time you sprint, every time you land, you're getting about 1,000 pounds on your joints, on your body. All right. So again, at the end of the day, your feet should be able to move like this. But again, we're always like this. And so it's about regaining access, range of motion throughout all the muscles, all the tissue within your foot. And then after that, we're also going to start focusing on the lower leg shank, all right, which is foot ankle mobility, and then your lower leg. Again, if you can find a way in those 3 weeks to really be dialed in and put this as your priority, all right, you've just put your ceiling potential from here to here for when we get to July, August, and then you get on the ice, and you're way faster than you used to be. Again, this is all about building the brakes before we can build the engine, right? It's one thing to have an engine and go 100 miles an hour, but if you can't stop and change direction, as we know sports, it's mostly acceleration based. There's rarely top end speed, especially in hockey anyways. So if you don't have the brakes to stop and change direction, then what's the use of having a big engine, all right? Because your brakes cannot handle the engine. So on Tuesday, for example, there are 3 6-second pauses, right? So our eccentric pauses are building the brakes, while our concentric pauses are building the engine. Again, there's no such thing as sports specific. If someone's trying to sell you something about sports specific, run the other way, all right? Rather think of it as joint angle specific. So everything that we do in the gym, all right, we try and replicate the movements that we see on the ice at the right angle. Again, if I'm out here, all right, I have a K-box over there, but let's just say that I'm doing a crossover from here. Okay, this is not like if I'm on the ice, but if I can lower that knee, I can lean in, I can really cross that leg over at the right joint angle. And again, you saw here, right, so this would be an inside-outside leg day, which is Friday, right? So we're trying to mimic the exact position you would have on the ice and have the athlete, 1, have range of motion to be there, and 2, understand how to produce force out of that movement, right? So again, this is so important. It is the most boring and the hardest phase that you're going to do, but this 3 weeks is incredibly important in order for set yourself up for success. All right, context matters, right? Is the exercise I'm doing actually helping them become better at their sport, right? Is the juice worth the squeeze? You have to learn the regression before you can earn the progression, right? So coaches, you guys will be responsible of having the coach's eye and making sure that everyone is doing the exercise that they should be doing on that day. And if they need to progress on that day, right, you have that progression. And if they can't do that exercise with proper form, then you have that regression ready for them, right? So you have to learn the progression before you earn the progression. If you can't handle the progression, then we have to scale it back. Sometimes taking a step back is actually taking 2 forward. So again, as I said before, we attack the weakness, but we keep working on the strength, right? So when we evaluate our athletes, we see where their strengths are. It's important for us to keep attacking those strengths, because at the end of the day, that's probably their magic. That's probably their superpower. So if we only focus on their weakness, well, we're taking their magic, their superpower, and then putting it downwards, right? That's not what we want. We want to keep improving their strengths while taking their weakness and bringing it up. As they say, you're only as strong as your weakest link. Again, we do a lot of athleticism, physical literacy, athletic training here, right? We want our athletes to be able to move. It's one thing to generate quick and immense amounts of force, but if you can't move, then you can't play the game, because there will be someone with maybe producing a little less force, but he's much more athletic. He moves way better than you, and rather than just being north-south kind of guy, he'll be able to go east-west and all over the place. All right. We also have some vestibular and proprioception with some low extensive plyo. All right. So this is not the time to start doing intense plyometrics, high jumps, rebounding, bounding, jumping, sprinting. All right, we want to stay away from that because, again, we haven't built the base. We haven't allowed our body to prepare its tissue properly in order to accept those big loads. So we keep it very low. Could be trampoline work. It could be something like a rudiment series, jumping on and off very small boxes. It could be something like that. So again, it's just getting into the motion, understanding how to move your body, how to move your feet, how to absorb force, how to produce force, how to react to the ground. But everything is very low and extensive. Our vestibular system, so VOR, so we have something we do, takes about 3 minutes, and it helps realign the athlete's posture. It makes them feel good. It allows better communication between the brain and the body so that when we get in the workout, we can get in better position and produce more force out of those positions. All right. This is also a time, right? So we have a nutritionist working with us, right? So he takes the body fat, prescribes a specific meal plan to that athlete. So it's a great time for you to dial in your nutrition, because at the end of the day, if you come here, your nutrition is off, your sleep is off, then you're leaving so many gains on the table. It's also a good time to dial in your sleep, right? So go to bed at the same time, regardless if it's the week or the weekend. Wake up at the same time, again, regardless if it's the week or the weekend. Try and be in bed before 10 p.m. at the latest, right? There's a difference between going to bed at 10 p.m., waking up at 6, and then going to bed at 2 a.m. and waking up at noon. Massive, massive difference. When we sleep is when our body recovers, regenerates, and gets stronger, bigger, and faster, right? So nutrition, dial it in. Your sleep, dial it in. Okay, it's going to make such a massive, massive difference. We also have mental performance consultant that works with our athlete, right? So if you're struggling with big games, or you're too nervous before a game, or you don't know how to handle a certain situation, all right, we put you in touch with them, and they help you figure it out mentally. Because yes, you can have all the skills in the world, but if you're not strong mentally, if you can't handle the pressure, then you're simply not going to be able to make it when push comes to shove, when you're past juniors, right? When you're in the pros. And it's also a time for us to let our athletes read and understand a workout. All right, so what is the exercise, how many sets, how many reps, to make sure they follow the tempo. Very, very important. Their rest period, how do they know they have the right weight in their hand, focusing on their technique. So a bunch of stuff that I can go over in another video. And then again, like I said, right, put the bag away. I know it sounds counterintuitive, counterproductive, but I promise you, if you want to get stronger and faster, stay off the ice and focus on the gym, right? You cannot be doing both because they don't work together. And again, this is not me saying this. This is head NHL strength coaches that have been in the field that are almost 60 years old today, all right? I was listening to a podcast the other day, Lauren Goldenberry, and he was basically saying, back in the day, the NHL players, the minor hockey players, April came around, the bags would be put until July, August, and the kids came back. They missed the game, and then they felt faster. They felt like they had a bigger pop in their step going onto the ice, and I think that is a big problem because that's going to lead to future injuries. It's going to lead to burnout. This athletes being disinterested. Maybe burnout is a big word. But again, if you want to get faster and you're serious about getting faster, stay off the ice, please. So again, quick run through. So day 1, we have long duration iso. Day 2, it's a 3 pause, 6 seconds. Day 3 and day 6, it's mobility and recovery. Day 4, it's the energy system day, so we're working our aerobic system. So very gently, it's more used as a recovery tool. than a high intensity tool. So we're just, again, trying to get the body back in balance. We're trying to keep our heart rate pretty even, pretty leveled. And we're doing that through various sled work, modified strongman, some contralateral circuits. And then Friday is another long duration iso, but in the frontal plane. So that's our inside, outside leg. And then day 7, right? It's your off day, your active recovery. So we do have mobility, ankle, hips, T-spine, shoulders, that if that's where you're lacking, that's what you do on that day amongst other days. But it's also a great time to just go for a nice walk in nature and just try and rejuvenate. So again, 3 weeks, non-negotiable. If our athletes are with us for 8 weeks, we're spending 3 weeks here. That's how important it is. And again, if you do this properly with the right technique, the right effort, and good coaching, all right, you're going to drastically increase your ceiling potential. And when we get to the sexy, the fun stuff, right, the power stuff, the concentric explosion, then your results are just going to skyrocket. All right, so looking forward to having you part of our summer program. Super excited. State-of-the-art facility, state-of-the-art workout. Again, thank you very much. Very, very grateful for you choosing us. And we cannot wait to see what your child, your kid, our athletes looks like when September rolls around.